In a world that's always racing forward, sometimes we need to slow down and reconnect.
Connect genuinely, broaden your perspective, and share your passion.
Bona Fide Dialogues, where authenticity, creativity, and passion merge.
Welcome to Bona Fide Dialogues.
Daniel J. Solove is the Eugene L. and Barbara A. Bernard Professor of Intellectual Property and Technology Law at the George Washington University Law School. One of the world's leading experts in privacy law, Solove is the author of more than 10 books and 100 articles about privacy. He has also written a children's fiction book about privacy. He is one of the most cited law professors in the law and technology field. Professor Solove has been interviewed and quoted in hundreds of media articles and broadcasts and has been a consultant for many Fortune 500 companies and celebrities. He has more than 1 million LinkedIn followers. His work is available at www.danielsolove.com.
Congratulations on your new book. It's a great book. I read it and I also listened to your audiobook. It's excellent. And I would like to ask you just to give an overview of your book and who should read it.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm delighted to be chatting with you today. I'm very excited to be talking about my new book. I'm really happy that it's now out. The book is my attempt to, in a very short and accessible way, in a very succinct way, to describe my thinking on privacy and how it has evolved over the past 25 years. And in particular, the question that I'm trying to most explore is, how does privacy law keep up with changing technologies? Digital technologies are changing so fast. We're in the age of AI. How should we regulate this? How can people protect themselves when it comes to this? And ultimately, my conclusion is that the law is going in the wrong direction, that people can't protect themselves on their own. We need legal protections. And unfortunately, a lot of the law's responses are basically to throw it into the hands of individuals to somehow do it themselves. And this just won't work. So a lot of this, then, the book also talks about some myths that are common for, made by tech companies and others for why regulation should be really weak or non-existent. And so I try to dispel those myths. And then also I walk through the problems that are being posed for privacy by the technologies. Like what are technologies doing? Why should we care about it? Why should we be concerned? And so I want the book to speak to a general audience. This is not a book primarily for a legal audience, although I hope that lawyers and policymakers read it. But I really wanted it to be a book for everyone so they could really understand what's going on. And I think one of the problems or reasons why the laws of privacy that are being passed, and there are a lot being passed these days, when they're not working very well, is that I think that policymakers think that people really don't know enough to demand more. And so what I wanted to provide in the book was to help people understand this is what the laws are doing, and you're kind of being fooled. You're being fooled into accepting a non-solution, that you're being given laws that are not effective, that are going to fail on day one. And you should demand more. Tell your policymakers to take that food back in the kitchen and redo the recipe.
Now, I love the fact that this book is written for general public, because what I'm seeing that privacy is being discussed in the legal field, in the legal community all the time, but there's not much attention to privacy, just generally speaking, right? So I think it's a great book. It's well written and easy to understand. So that is great. I think we need to have more conversations about privacy everywhere.
Exactly. I think that's exactly right. I think that people are very concerned about privacy, and people are very interested in privacy. So I think it's an issue that affects all of us. It's profoundly important, and the problems are getting worse and more complex. And I think it's very important that everyone be engaged in this, and that people understand what's happening, and see past a lot of the faulty arguments and the myths that are being thrown up in their way. So often, oh, privacy's dead, so there's nothing we can do. Or people really don't care about privacy because they're just sharing all their information on the internet, and they're using technologies such as smartphones and smart devices. So therefore people don't care, so we shouldn't do anything. Or, oh, we don't want to stifle innovation because if we regulate, then other countries won't and they'll get ahead. I think all these are false arguments, and they're arguments that are made to try to get people to either give up, or to for policymakers to not regulate, or for there to be incredibly weak regulation. And I think it's really important to have answers to these arguments, because I see them come up time and again. They're doing a lot of damage. They're really holding things back. And so I'm hoping that the book can helpfully exorcise some of these demons that are haunting this space.
We give away our privacy for security, for convenience, for this cool new apps we're using. And you just mentioned the fact that people think maybe privacy is already gone. Is it dead?
Yeah. Well, I think that people are, technology presents us with immediate benefits. So the benefits are, oh, wow, this is a cool app. I can see how I look like if used with a cat. Like, wouldn't it be neat? Or, oh, I have a smart doorbell camera. Now I can see who's at my door. Cool. Or, oh, wow, I can, I can get a ride really quickly by using my app, or find something easily by using my app, or have a flashlight on my phone with an app. All sorts of technology. We get the benefits. It's very, very clear what the benefits are. The cost is much more complicated. And it's more abstract, it's more distant, it's in the future. And people really don't understand the cost. So it's very easy to get the benefit, but what's the cost? I don't even know, as a privacy expert, how to assess the cost, because I don't know enough about what's going on with the data. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of vendors and other third parties that can get to this data and access the data when you provide it. It can be combined. It can be put into AI algorithms that will then make inferences and find out more information about you that you didn't expect. It can be used in unexpected ways that can be very problematic, but it might be years. So it's really hard at the moment to decide, like, okay, should I have a doorbell camera?
You should, right? You should.
Yeah, I mean, there's benefits, right? We want to be able to use technologies, and it shouldn't be the case that you have to accept no privacy. You have to accept all these uses of your data. Well, no, you don't. That's just, they're telling you, like, it has to be the choice, but it doesn't have to be the choice. The law can say no. There's certain choices and trade-offs that we won't, put on consumers. Or this dangerous product. It might blow up and kill you, but it's your choice. Take it or leave it. No, the law says, look, you can't buy if it's really dangerous. We're not going to let you sell it, no matter what you offer in exchange. It could be the coolest thing in the world, and people really want to use it. But if it's dangerous, we don't let it be sold. We say, no, you got to make it safe.
Right, right. That's a very good point. So we need to find this balance between using technology and regulating it, but also not over-regulating it. When it's for example, from compliance point of view, it may become so difficult to comply that, and I know you heard this argument many times, that we don't want to stop companies to innovate, and we don't want them to go out of business. Because each regulation brings financial burden too, right? But complying is expensive, not complying is even more expensive.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes, though, the equation for especially the larger companies and even for smaller companies is being overblown. It's being oversold. Like if you look at some of the largest companies, the amount that they actually spend, oh, we spend millions of dollars on privacy compliance. Well, they're making billions of dollars in profit. So if you look at privacy as a percentage of the profit that they're making, it's actually incredibly small. And they're whining about that. They're whining about a very small expenditure, but it's tiny in a lot of cases. And the things they need to do to comply, despite like a lot of complaints and whining and a tantrum, are actually not that hard. And we've seen this historically, where the early days, we can't be regulated for food safety because we won't be able to, we'll go out of business. We won't be able to survive. We know better than the government. And then people are dying because there's lead and arsenic and milk was mixed with formaldehyde and the spices you buy would be ground up insects or sawdust instead. And we regulate it. And guess what? They're still
in business, and thriving.
Cars. They used to say, oh, well, no, people don't care about car safety. It's all the driver's fault. We can't make safer cars. And then, we said, no, you're going to make safer cars. You're going to have seat belts. You're going to have airbags. And then we're going to have car safety standards. And guess what? They're not out of business. They're doing fine. They could do it. And same thing with fuel efficiency, right? We said, look, we want more fuel efficient car. Oh, we're going to go out of business. It's going to cost us so much money. Wah, wah, wah. And it's a tantrum. I feel like it's like, trying to get my child to clean up his room.
So the advice you would give to these large companies: prioritize privacy compliance, dedicate reasonable amount of funds for these efforts, and I think privacy by design, so you don't have to redo things later on. Think ahead.
Exactly. And I don't think a lot of companies are devoting a reasonable attention to this. They aren't protecting privacy reasonably. They're spending most of their money and time complaining. So most of their money is being spent on lobbyists trying to get rid of the laws or weaken the laws rather than actually responding to the harm. So there's a harm. Oh my gosh, your AI is hurting people and harming people. Your technology is violating people's privacy. One response is, maybe we should try to make it safer and better and improve our product. Another response is, let's spend hundreds of millions of dollars on lobbyists to try to get regulators not to regulate. And then we're going to sell them on the argument, oh, well, we want to innovate and we can't innovate. It's just going to kill us. And I kind of think, there's the companies are very quick. I say this in the book. The companies are very quick to say, when you ask them, can you develop technologies to solve problems? Are you able to solve problems with technology? If I give you a really hard problem, can you solve it? Oh, of course. That's what we do, right? We are problem solvers. We have the best programmers in the world, and we'll solve everything. Our AI is perfect. We can do amazing things. We can do magic. We can make elephants fly. And then you ask them, well, can you do some compliance? Can you build more safety into your products? Can you design them so they're less privacy invasive? And then, oh my gosh, no, we're going to go out of business. We can't possibly solve that. That's impossible. It's going to cost too much. Oh my gosh, and I think like that's the problem. They're talking out of two sides of their mouth. In one hand, they think they can do anything, and then in the other hand, when you want them to do something responsibly, suddenly it's impossible. Well, it's just that they don't want to do it. What they want to do is just do what they do, create costs and harms and risks to people, and then not pay for it because you make more money that way, right? You do something, and if someone else has to pay your cost, great, put the cost on the consumer. They'll deal with it, and then companies make more money. Instead, I think you make them accountable. You cause harm, you pay for it. You should make safer products, and the law needs to do the incentives right, which is make the right incentives. If companies are incentivized with the appropriate incentives, both carrots and sticks, to make less privacy invasive products, to make safer products, guess what? They're going to do it. And that's one thing that companies do very well, is they respond to incentives. This is basic economics 101. It's very simple. You create the incentive, the companies will respond to that incentive. And the problem is the law creates the wrong incentives. It ignores basic economics, and it goes with this weird like sense of, oh, well, if we just don't regulate them, don't do anything, don't create the right incentives, that they're just going to do the right thing out of the goodness of their own heart, ignoring the incentives, ignoring everything we've learned about economics. They're just going to do everything just right because of somehow like the inherent goodness of a corporation. Well, corporations aren't inherently good. They're not inherently evil. They are machines built to make profit.
Yeah.
That's what they're designed to do. So don't expect them to have ethics, just like I don't expect a shark to have ethics. I don't expect a shark to start, saying, let me think about philosophy should I eat the seal or not? Well, let me think, what would Kant say? No, they're going to just eat the seal. And that's companies. They're going to make the profit. And you want them to do privacy, you want them to do safety, you want them to do anything. You make the incentives, they'll do it. They're good at that.
When it comes to regulations, I think what companies want to see is consistency, because we have so many laws that it's really difficult to comply. And new regulations are, being added every year, and it becomes confusing. So that is something that I think is important to mention.
I would say yes and no. I think that, yes, I agree generally, like, having a lot of different laws is harder to comply with. It definitely is hard. It's not impossible, because when you look at a lot of the laws being passed, they're actually quite similar. So, there are some differences here and there, but I would say that they're more similar than they are different. And so it comes, oh my gosh, it's so hard. There's so many laws, but it's actually not that it's hard as you might think. I mean, I think, yeah, I want to make it easier to comply, but if you make it too easy, that's harder. I kind of think it's almost like companies are kind of like dealing with kids. Kids want it easy, and companies want it easy. And what's easy for a company is, let's find some way to do something really mindlessly. Let's create some kind of checklist or routine, and then we don't need to hire anyone with real expertise or skill or experience. We'll just hire someone to check something off mindlessly on a checklist, and it's cheap, and we'll automate it then and do it. You're really on the cheap. That's not good compliance for privacy. You need someone who, I think the checklist approach is not a good approach. I think you need someone to really think through these really difficult, complicated ethical issues. You need someone with experience who's really thoughtful. And
I agree.
Time in. And the problem is, if you make it too easy for when they say they want easy, that's what they want. They don't want the person to sit there and think. They don't want any difficult, ambiguous questions. They want to say, look, if I just check something off on a checklist, I'm done. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, sorry, but I don't think they should be getting away that easily. That said, I think needless complication isn't helpful. So I definitely would say, look, I don't think it's right just to make the law complicated or inconsistent just to make it inconsistent. On the other hand, I think that the law needs to make it so that companies can't just get off the hook too easily and just do a checklist, because that's what they'll do. They're very good at that. And they'll just automate this and checklist this, and then privacy compliance becomes meaningless. It's just a bunch of checks and things that look good on paper, but then ultimately don't really
protect
the issues. Yeah.
Yeah, when we talk about privacy, we usually think about this central concept of reasonable expectation of privacy. And it's changed over the years, especially now with this advanced technology. How do we even approach it nowadays?
Well, I think that the key in the law, and this is something a big point in the book is that the law should focus on the values that we have, on the principles. That when the law tries to focus too heavily on particular technologies and builds itself around how technologies work today, that law gets obsolete very quickly. Sometimes even before the law is even printed in the law books. The best way is to say these are our goals and our values, and these are what we want to achieve. How we get there, the specifics, that's going to change as technology changes, but we can write the laws with the goals in mind. So an example, one simple example is there was a law that was passed in the days where videos were on cassettes and people would go and they'd rent video cassettes. And Congress passed a law called the Video Privacy Protection Act. That law defined a term called video tapes, but it defined it, fortunately, in a way that was broad. So it basically said, videotapes and other similar types of video technologies, essentially. And that allowed the law to evolve to cover DVDs, to cover streaming. So now the law is relevant. If the law were written differently, which a lot of privacy laws are, it would be obsolete now because we're not using videotapes. And so that's the kind of way you draft a law. You look at, okay, what are we trying to get at? We want to protect people's video privacy. It doesn't matter what technology is used. We want to make sure that people can protect the information about what videos they're watching in any format so that they're not, shared with other companies or shared online when people don't want that to happen. And that's what we need to do. And I think if the law focuses on that, like that's our goal, then as technology changes, the goal remains the same. The goal isn't changing. It's the technology's changing. But then ultimately, if you leave enough wiggle room in the law, figure out how then the law applies to these new technologies, but we still have the goal. And we can work out over time how that goal is going to be achieved. But that's what the law should really do. And say, these are the goals we want to achieve. How we get there, the specifics, the details, the way the technology works. We don't need to get that specific in the law.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Focus not on technology, but on what are you trying to protect. I think that's the key. And I wanted to talk about privacy paradox.
Yeah. So the privacy paradox is a phenomenon that really does occur. And the big dispute is how we interpret this phenomenon. So the phenomenon is that when you ask people, do you care about privacy? People will always overwhelmingly say yes. 90%, 95% will say, yeah, I care about privacy. And then though, when you look at their behavior, you'll often find that they don't do a lot of things.
Seems like they don't, right?
They don't delete their data, they don't access their records, they don't use their privacy rights, they share data on social media. And so a number of folks have looked at this and said, this is the privacy paradox, right? Their attitudes are not matching their behavior. And that's fine. I think that does exist. But then the question is, how do we interpret it? Why is this happening? And some people interpret this to say, well, talk is cheap. We should look at what behavior is. And people really care about, you really want to see what people value privacy, look at their behavior only. And it shows they don't really care. So we shouldn't regulate. We shouldn't do much protection because people don't really care about protection. My take on this is that's wrong. That's a myth. In fact, people really do. The behavior is shaped by a lot of factors that have nothing to do with people's attitudes. The behavior is based on a risk decision. And the decision is, what are the benefits? What are the costs? Is this going to help me more than it's going to hurt me? That's how I decide. Should I use my smartphone? Should I buy the doorbell with the camera? I'm going to weigh what are the benefits, what are the costs. The problem is that people can't really assess the costs. So what we're seeing in the paradox is, the fact that there's a skewing going on in the behavior because people can't really uh, understand the costs and the things that people are being given to do with their data. The laws, oh, you get this right to delete, you get the right to opt out, you get the right to access your data and to access all the records. I don't even know all the companies that have all the data. There are thousands of companies that have all the data. You're not going to have time to access all that data. Then you have to go through the data and figure out what's going on with it, how it's being used. It's very complicated. How are people going to understand how the AI algorithms work? They decide, I'm going to give up these, I'm going to tell a company like what things I'm buying at the supermarket. They might say, okay, how is that going to harm me? They can't really make it's impossible for people to really do all this stuff. I don't think people can make a decision about a lot of things. Like, I don't have time to be a free proofreader for my records. I don't have time to reach out to every company and ask them to delete my data. I just don't have the time. And a lot of the law says, yeah, they should delete the data when they no longer need it. How am I to know when they no longer need it? I don't know. I'm supposed to figure this out. I feel like the child in the back of the car. Like, are we there yet? And I'm supposed to do this 1,000 times. It doesn't scale. So it's asking people to do the impossible, something they really don't want to do. They don't have the expertise to do it. I don't think even experts can't do it. And it's being thrown to people. And people don't want to focus on it. Just like you go to a website and it says, do you want our cookies? Yes. Or go to this page and we'll tell you about like 1,000 different kinds of cookies and you can do 1,000 different toggles. I just want to read the site. Like, I want to go to the site. Last thing I want to do is become an expert on 1,000 different flavors of cookie and do all these toggles and do all that. Like, I don't know what half these cookies are or what they're doing, or I just get me to the site. Like, I don't want to become a cookie expert every time I go to a site. Who wants that? So people just click accept just to basically make it go away. But that doesn't mean they don't care about privacy. It also doesn't mean they really even accept the cookies. They don't know what the cards are. They're just accepting. Accept means go away so I can go to the site and do what I want it to do. I mean, just imagine if we replicated this experience in real life. You're at a store and you go and you at the supermarket, you pick up every product and someone pops out right there and says, hey, let me tell you about all this stuff. Let me tell you about like you buying milk. Let me tell you about milk production. Here's a lesson. Here's an hour worth of information about how milk is made and pasteurized. Do you want to research the farms? No, I just want to buy milk. I don't want to become a milk expert. I'm sorry. I just want to buy my milk and know it's not going to kill me.
Yeah, so the government needs to step in and protect people.
Yeah.
Don't shift it to the user.
The user just can't be an expert. And even the experts, like, I don't have time to know all the things I need to know to make a decision. If I really want to know, okay, what's the risk to me for using a technology or using an app? Well, I'm going to want to talk to the privacy officer. I need a long conversation. Tell me, okay, do you do a privacy impact assessment? I'd like to see that impact assessment. I want to see if it's any good. Are you missing anything? I want to talk to your security officer. Telling me you have reasonable security doesn't help me. I want to know, do you do encryption? Do you train your workforce? Do you do penetration testing? What is your protection against phishing? Tell me all the details. Who has access to this data? I want to see your vendor agreements. Well, you're going to, you do all this stuff, but then you share it with these vendors that might be very insecure or might have very bad privacy practices. So I kind of want to see what your agreements look like. Who are your vendors? And, how good is their privacy?
Yeah. Where do you store your data? Yeah.
It goes on and on. I mean, it could be, and I also want to see your algorithms. Like, what are your algorithms? And I want to see what they do. But to really understand them, I need to know all the data they're trained on. So I need to know all the training data. So please let me have a conversation with your engineers and your computer scientists. I need your programmers to all sit down with me, teach me how it all works, show me the data, but it's always changing, right? Because the algorithms are being fed new data and they're learning from that data. And so what they do now might be very different than what they do a week from now. And so if I really want to know what my risk is, I kind of need to know in real time, all the time, what the algorithms are likely to do and how they're likely to, and what the data they're being constantly trained on it looks like, so that I can figure out the risk. I can't do that. Just can't. It's too much. So I think the ultimate rule that I think we can do stuff before, we call it ex ante, the product is deployed. And we can do stuff after, ex post. And I think what works for a lot of other things could work for privacy. So when it comes to foods and drugs and cars, we have first, the regulators will make sure that the cars are safe. We have safety testing, we have safety standards, we have food standards, we have testing and safety for pharmaceuticals. But then, of course, it's impossible to do everything up front. You can't, totally prevent all risk. But we know that if a drug turns out to be bad, doesn't work, have deadly side effects or very bad side effects, or if a car turns out to be really dangerous and defective, there are protections after the fact. People can sue. And so companies know that. Companies know, like, if we get it wrong, right? If we put out a bad drug on the market, we're gonna really get hit hard. So there's a good incentive for them not to do it. The problem with technology is there is no incentive for them not to do it. So what are they going to do? Let's put it out, even if it's incredibly dangerous, it's going to hurt people because they know that they're not going to pay anything if it goes wrong. It's just like people eat their own costs, people suffer. If we put it, it'd be like, okay, we'll put out a car. Yes, it can blow up and kill you, but whatever, if we don't have to pay for that, we'll do it. So that's the problem. And the law needs to make sure that companies don't do this kind of thing when it comes to privacy or, just generally with technology. But unfortunately, with technology, there's what I call technology exceptionalism. For some reason, the law just kind of says, well, we're going to treat this differently, despite the fact that we've learned through hundreds of years that effective regulation really does work and it's necessary. But for technology, we'll just give up. And I think that's not the right approach. I think the law needs to say, look, we're going to hold the companies accountable. They're accountable, then the incentives are right. They will make more privacy protective technology. They'll make safer technology. But the only way we're going to get that is the law holds them accountable.
And the privacy used to be simple, right? And now in this new technology world, it's complex. What should be considered private is also a very arguable topic, right? But we touched a little bit on reasonable expectation of privacy, and the similar concept is secrecy paradigm. If I shared something online, it doesn't need any protection. It's no longer secret.
Well, I wouldn't totally. I think that there's a lot.
I disagree with that. I'm just reciting the concept for people who are unfamiliar with this paradigm.
Yeah, this is very common in the law. So a lot of the law will have the secrecy paradigm, and I critique this extensively in my work and in this book. This view that if information is exposed to other people, or if it's exposed online, or if a third party has access to it, that it's no longer private. That, oh, well, you put it out there, so therefore you get no privacy protection at all. And I think this is really problematic for the way we live today, because there's so much information we are sharing. We're sharing a lot of information on social media. But just because I share it with some people on social media does not mean I share it with the world. Just because a company has, like Amazon.com knows the books I buy does not mean that everyone should know the books I buy. But a lot of the companies think, well, people, they have a very simplistic understanding of privacy, And so does the law that, oh, well, everyone should know everything. And if you put it online, you shouldn't get any protection. Well, I think no, you should still get protection. I have a lot of information online. My a video of me is online. Um, what's in the video, yeah, I think that is, people can watch the video, but that doesn't mean that people should be able to take my image or create a AI avatar of me or a fake AI of me or clone my voice and then use my voice for anything they want to use it for. Just because I put it out there does not mean that I don't have or shouldn't have protection against harmful uses. And there's a lot of very harmful things that can be done with people's information that's out there, with their photographs. They're being scraped off the internet and used for facial recognition systems. And these systems are used to identify people who can then be arrested. So people don't think, oh, I just created a LinkedIn profile, that now their photo is being used in facial recognition technology that could be used to arrest them. Or instances where, in one case, with this was with Madison Square Garden in New York. The Madison Square Garden used facial recognition technology to identify lawyers who were involved in cases against it, and then they kicked them out of the center. So people were walking in, they never thought, okay, because I put my picture on LinkedIn or wherever, that now I'm getting kicked out of places for just doing my job, for doing my profession. And we're seeing this a lot. And I think that these other uses of the data are improper. And I think that we need protection against that, even though it's available to the public. That doesn't extinguish privacy rights. And if you think about it, like think about copyright, a lot of time, Disney might put up a cartoon on YouTube, or put out books, put out movies, music, everything, and we don't say, oh well, it's out there, so therefore there's no copyright protection to it. There is. You don't, copyright recognizes that just being publicly exposed does not mean that you don't have protection. Now we're seeing big battles now with companies, AI companies, kind of using the same tech ethos. Just take it, use it however you want with no accountability, and then we'll worry about any problems later. And so, a lot of content creators are suing, saying, hey, you're just taking all our stuff, using it in ways to create things that are going to essentially like replace us and take our jobs and take our livelihoods. And we're going to see what courts do. But it's the same kind of ethos of, oh, you put the personal data on LinkedIn, so therefore we're going to take it and use it for any purpose, for whatever we want, even if that purpose could be very harmful to you and give you no benefit at all, because the law says, oh, well, we can't do anything to protect it. The law can do something to protect it. It's a question of, will the law step in and do it, or will the law not step in and do it? And yeah, it's cheap for the companies to be able just to take whatever they want and do whatever they want with it. That's what they want. They just want free stuff so they can take it and use it and make money from it.
Yeah, you mentioned facial recognition software, and which is used by government as well. And we all, as US citizens, want to have our country safe and secure, but it's often difficult to find this balance between privacy and security, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a problem. And I think I'm not a privacy absolutist. I don't think most people are. But a lot of times, when people try to, talk about, they kind of try to typecast or kind of distort anyone who wants privacy into being an absolutist. That's not what people want. Yeah,
I have nothing, if you have nothing to hide, right? You should not be worried. This argument we hear a lot. It's like, yeah.
Exactly. Nothing to hide argument, an argument I've attacked extensively. I think, it's not about hiding things. It's about protecting against abuses and bad, harmful uses of information, which a lot of times have nothing to do with hiding stuff. It's also about other things. It's just that, hey, I don't want my face in a facial recognition system, being denied access to someplace because I said something critical of it. So if I critiqued Madison Square Garden, I don't want to be denied entry into Madison Square Garden. And it's not that I want to hide from the world what I said about it. I just don't think it's right for them to be able to use my information in a way to penalize me for my views and for what I've said.
And
And
privacy, privacy feels so natural to us humans. We close our curtains, not and our doors, not only for safety, just to feel that, feel comfortable, feel private. That privacy, it's very special, I think, to us humans, because I think there were even some experiments where they observed how people behaved if they think they're not being filmed or they're being filmed. It makes a difference somehow subconsciously for humans. I think it's such a natural right. We don't even have to justify. I'm not doing anything wrong.
yeah, I definitely think that's the case. I mean, we've seen study after study, and they show that people care about privacy. People protect their privacy in different ways. So it's not the case that like everyone's going to do the same behaviors to protect their privacy. But we see that even in places where it looks like there's not a lot of privacy, people still find a way to be apart from others. They still find a way to conceal information. And I'll say, for those who say, oh, well, people just don't care about privacy, they really don't want privacy, then I want to take them all if the and let's put them in a bathroom and let's have no dividers in the stalls and see what they think. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of um, uh, reasons why people want privacy, and I think that it is a natural impulse and desire that people have. Just it's complex and it's manifested in different ways. But just because it's complicated and it's not all uniform does not mean it doesn't exist or that people don't care. It just makes it a complicated issue.
How much has been done since the events involving Edward Snowden? Have we seen many changes in law and society?
Not enough. I think there were some changes, but they were very mild. There were certainly the Supreme Court did have some decisions that were more favorable to privacy that pushed away from the secrecy paradigm after that. Congress did do a little something, but not enough. So I think like what was done was very, very, very small compared to the problems that existed uh, for Snowden and before Snowden. I was writing about this issue for Snowden was 2013. I was writing about it, for more than a decade before that, and other people were writing about it even longer than that. So these problems had long persisted. The law protecting us from government surveillance is incredibly weak, desperately needs reform. The Snowden revelations pointed out some of these problems. There were, a few things done, but they were far from enough. And I think now we're really going to see we're in now a much more pervasive surveillance society. We're seeing technologies of surveillance that are supercharged, put on steroids with AI, and with the proliferation of cameras everywhere. So the amount of surveillance that we have now is dramatic. And we're living in a society now where the government, the federal government especially, is gathering a lot of data, is engaging in a lot of surveillance, and they're going to do more. And so I think it's very the kind of dystopian future that
And we don't have much information about what exactly they're doing, how they're doing it, why.
yeah, and that's the problem. That this is kind of the dystopian future that everyone warned against. Like, okay, we're here, we are here, and it is going on now. And unfortunately, everyone who said this is a problem was dismissed as Chicken Little. Oh, you're just complaining, the sky's falling. Oh, we'll never get to a dystopia. The government's always going to do good. We shouldn't be concerned about this. Well, I think that's now we're really seeing, the consequences of what is going on, and
When we live in
the
democracy, we should care about this.
I think people do, but I think unfortunately the government didn't respond. Protections weren't fast enough, and people didn't really take the and, and so here we are. And I think this is a very difficult, problematic time, and I think it's going to get worse because people haven't we didn't build the law that we need. And so right now, it's just, the government can use any kind of technology practically. And a lot of the technologies that the government can use have no guardrails. There's no accountability. There's no protections. So they can just use facial recognition technology with hardly any oversight, with hardly any limitation, with hardly any guardrails, any protections. And I think that, that these technologies maybe could be okay but they need a tremendously strong set of protections. And these protections have to be strong protections. They can't kind of be weak protections that can just be ignored. We need actual structural protections that would stop bad uses, that will mandate accountability, protections that are built into the technology. But, the law doesn't force companies to build these things into the technology. Instead, the companies build the technology and then go and sell it to the government. And the incentive is, let's sell highly privacy invasive technology to the government for whatever they want to do and get away with. And where's the incentive to have accountable technologies or technologies that are limited?
I like that you mentioned this link. We're talking about government, but who is building those technologies? Companies. Yes, you have to be responsible. I think that's a very important point you just mentioned.
Yeah, government surveillance and consumer privacy and what companies do are really two sides of the same coin now, because the government can just get the data by buying it from companies or accessing it from companies. And so the government doesn't need to build the technologies. They don't need to gather the data themselves directly. They just tap in to companies to get the data. Hey, you don't need to go and if they want to find out what am I buying, what am I doing, they just go to the companies that I'm shopping with and gather that information. They can get what I'm looking at on the web by going to my
Where are you going? Yes, everything.
yeah, they can get location data. And so we have very few protections on what they can get. And we have companies that are very eager to help the government to gather this data, to gather it for them and then sell it to the government. They make a lot of money doing that, data brokers. Then you also have companies that will analyze the data. Oh, government, hey, we'll help you. We'll help you take all the data you're getting. We will combine it. They're called fusion. They'll combine the data so they can learn even more about people. And then they'll help them analyze the data. You cannot protect against government surveillance adequately. You can't regulate it adequately without regulating the companies too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's no way you can really do that. You can say, okay, okay, so we stop the government from putting a tracking device on your car, but then if you can just go and buy location data from companies,
Yeah.
what's the point?
Not for one person, but for 100,000 people. Yeah. Yeah, and because there's so much information out there, people are worried about what they're saying online, because whatever they say and express their opinion, it can be used against them.
Yeah.
If you had a magic wand and you could make one important change, what would that be?
That's really hard because the problem is that, we've been using the wrong approaches and laws for decades. We've been neglecting to address these issues for decades. So it's kind of like a house that is practically like collapsing in on itself. And it's like, okay, what do you fix? Do you fix like the toxic lead paint? Do you fix the floors that are collapsing in? Do you fix like the water
The
that's
roof, yeah.
or the asbestos? Like, what do you do? There's too much that have been left to but I think generally on a broader level, I think, first of all, just making sure that we're addressing all the problems and not just a few, shifting away from the individual control model of just putting the onus on individuals to protect privacy on their own and mandating more. And I think very broadly, if we get the incentives right, a lot will follow. And that means that companies have to be incentivized to be accountable and to uh, not cause the harm. And if they cause harm, they need to pay for that harm and pay the full price of the harm they're causing. And if we just did that, we'd make a lot of progress. But I don't know how many times, if I had a nickel for every time a court threw out a case saying, oh, there's just no harm here. If I had a nickel for every time a legislature or a court would say, oh, well, these companies are so big and it's so expensive to protect privacy, so we just shouldn't do it. There's a case where, this big credit reporting agency made a mistake and didn't fix it in someone's credit report, oh well, they're processing so much data, so we should forgive them. Well, it's their choice to process all the data. It's kind of like, the person who goes to the all-you-can-eat buffet and they go and gorge themselves and now they're overstuffed. And then we say, oh, well, it's not your fault, but they should know if you want to get all this data, then, and you're going to make a profit on it, don't hurt people in the process. And if you do, you should pay it. And we shouldn't excuse it just because we're upset that
Because mistakes happen, right?
you hurt someone, now you have to pay them. Well, you should have to pay them. Maybe your business model isn't good. Maybe you're eating too much data than you can protect. And I kind of think, companies shouldn't, if you can't protect it, don't collect it.
Absolutely.
If you can't use it responsibly, then don't use it. If the new use is going to cause people harm, then you better be ready that if you do cause the harm, to pay the cost. But if you don't, then it's a freebie. It's like, hey, I can do all this. I could put all the risk on somebody else, put all the harm on somebody else, and just reap the profit without the risk. Well, yeah, I mean, that'd be great. I'd love to go to the casino and someone tell me, bet all you want, and all your losses are covered, but you keep all the winnings. That's a great deal. I'm going to go and bet like crazy. Why not? I'm going to be risky because I know my losses are covered. And the same thing goes with privacy. If we want them to be more responsible, they need to cover their losses.
Oh, thank you for this. I just wanted to ask you a couple more questions. I know you're passionate about privacy, but is there anything else you like to do? And I'm asking privacy expert about private life. Do you like hiking, or what do you enjoy?
That's an invasion. No, I
You
like
don't have
a lot.
to answer.
I like literature. I like writing. I write fiction. One of these days, maybe I'll publish something. I like, so reading and writing are a big thing. I like books, and so I can't resist buying way too many books. I like tennis.
Would you recommend one or two your favorite books?
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah. In literature, I like Kafka. And I think I even use Kafka a lot for privacy because I think it's actually there's a lot of stuff in Kafka that's very helpful for understanding modern privacy problems. But just in terms of even without the privacy connection, I think, Kafka's works are just wonderful. I mean, they're very dark. I actually think they're very funny. I think they're designed as a kind of dark humor, but I really love those books. But I love literature of all sorts, and I teach a class on literature.
So you read your books? You like physical books, or you listen to books?
Books, by the way. I really like the physical book. I'll listen to a book every now and then, and if it's well read, it's fine. But there's nothing replaces the physical book, even though it's crazy because I have thousands upon thousands of books. So it's difficult, not very practical, but there's just something that just is not captured, that the digital experience just doesn't capture, that the written print book has. There's just something magical about it. Digital book is just a computer file. It's just a bunch of, pixels, but it doesn't, have the, I kind of think that there's something wonderful about the physical, that the electronic just doesn't hold a candle to it.
I agree. I agree. And there's one question that I ask everyone on my video podcast. What does kindness mean to you?
I think it means, basically respecting other people and caring about other people. It's that simple. And, I think it's unfortunately, too little of that in today's world that we're seeing. And it seems like kindness is kind of out of fashion these days, which is very sad, because I think just basically it's why not respect other people? Why not just be nice to other people? And it seems very, very simple. And you know what? Most of the time they'll be nice to you back. And, you get a lot further that way. Your life is a lot better that way. Seems like a very simple lesson. And sadly, I don't know why it can't be learned.
Thank you. Thank you very much.